it on! Leave it on! America! See the music you want to see!
I want my MTV. Alright.
MTV used to be one of the coolest networks in the 80s and 90s. Now it just kinda exists. I don't even know what they do anymore besides white guilting people online on occasion. They used to be the one-stop shop for music videos. The music part of MTV actually meant shit back then. MTV used to also make some pretty entertaining TV shows. A lot of people like to discredit their live action shows, but I found some of them to be pretty entertaining, like Silent Library, Pimp My Ride, a classic, and Robin Big. Rest in peace, Big. But what everyone seems to kind of overlook is that MTV made some pretty awesome cartoons, mostly aimed at teenagers or a more adult audience. And that's where I come in. Hello, I'm MarsReviews, and welcome to the MTV Retrospectral Show. We're in this 2 to 3 part series where I look at every single MTV cartoon and MTV2 cartoon, and I say what my thoughts are. Over the course of 2.5 months, I had to do nothing but indulge myself with MTV cartoons, and some of it was good and some of it was pretty shit. So let's get started.
Stevie Washington, the angry youth. Born to Die. New York's New York. The turn of the century. All crime.
First up in the year 1987 is the first MTV cartoon, Stevie and Zoya. Stevie and Zoya was a series of 1-minute shorts produced by Joe Horn. Joe mainly serves as a storyboard artist for some of your favorite cartoons, like The Critic, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. He even took the role of director of the 2006 Cartoon Network series Class of 3000. Stevie and Zoya is a buddy spy series with title character Stevie Washington, a young 20-something with black hair, sunglasses, and a red, white, and blue skateboard. Not only does he want to look epic on his skateboard, but he also wants to represent his country. A true hero. And Zoya, basically Joe's fetish character. I like her, but I think Joe just put everything he finds sexually attractive into one character, and it's kinda obvious. Red jumpsuit, stiletto heels, large hair bow, along with Playboy bunny ears. Come on, Joe. Everything about this show is rough. From the visuals, the animation, to the music, to even the narration.
Now, am I scared or...
You're always tough, even if you're never scared.
Yo, I'm like Sylvester Stallone.
Like, they literally just left in all the voice actors fucking up their lines and a bit of improv into the final product. It's kind of funny and has a little bit of a charm to it. Stevie and Zoya never really progressed other than these shorts, but did make a return online in 2004 and 2010 as a flash show on the internet that you can watch here on YouTube. Stevie and Zoya I wouldn't say is a necessity for everyone. I'm pretty sure most people don't even know of its existence. It's not really that amazing or great of a show. It has some minor charm to it, like the shorts being this rough piece of animation from the 80s, but again, nothing really amazing. But I do think it's pretty cool that the first MTV animated thing was a bunch of crude shorts probably made by some guy in college or something, so there's that. Pretty much any network's first animated show is going to be this rough piece of work. I mean, Cartoon Network's first original thing was the Moxie show, and that thing was rough as shit. Next we move to our next show, Liquid Television. Liquid Television was an animation showcase that premiered June 2nd, 1991 to March 6, 1994. Liquid Television was basically what Cartoon Network's Cartoons was, and Nick's Oh Yeah Cartoons block, only that this was way before them and didn't have to appeal to children. And that was one of MTV's coolest aspects. It appealed to a more older teen to adult audience. It also helped that Liquid Television was also at the time really the only place where you can get these really funny and just downright insane shorts. This was before the dawn of the internet and internet animation, so seeing some weird animated shit was probably a weird experience for people back then, and wasn't as common. I don't know, the idea of people going from looking at shows like, I don't know, fucking DuckTales to looking at shit like Aeon Flux is probably really bizarre.
The warehouse is located. The warehouse is one that is,
Liquid Television was a hub for many creators, mostly young upstarts to get their shot. A lot of animated shows that premiered on MTV spawned from Liquid Television. Aeon Flux, Beavis and Butthead, The Max, even shows that didn't even air on MTV started off as a pilot of some sort. I really appreciate Liquid Television and all these programming blocks that just play shorts. It gives us a lot of cartoons and ideas for multiple creators. Liquid Television did make a brief comeback in August of 2014, but I guess they just stopped because of low ratings, I'm assuming. I mean, MTV is not what it used to be in that era. Plus, I don't think they advertised it extremely well because I was very unaware of this. Liquid Television, go watch it. Not every short is the greatest to be honest, but the good ones are really good. If you don't feel like watching every episode or sitting through every short, I suggest the best of list here on YouTube. Next we have the avant-garde science fiction series Aeon Flux, a show that again started on Liquid Television in 1991 and later got 6 serial short films in 1992 and eventually getting an entire 10-episode half-hour season in 1995. The plot of Aeon Flux is... I I don't fucking know. I'd like to at least somewhat know what I'm talking about in these videos and not look like a bumbling idiot, but I have no goddamn clue what happens in this show half the time. And I mostly blame me not being able to grasp what's happening plot-wise. It's because I'm being distracted by the visuals alone, and doing that and keeping up with this weird world and story, I just can't do that, dude. If you watch the YouTube channel Rebel Taxi, you probably heard him talk about Korean animator and director Peter Chung. Peter Chung is well known for having one of the more bizarre animation styles of pretty much anything I've ever seen. His shows are like way too well animated to like a grotesque degree. It also doesn't help that the show is just bizarre along with the style. Some of the concepts and shit in Aeon Flux is still some of the weirdest stuff you'll see in animation or pretty much anything. And I lived through the age where the internet existed, and some of the shit on the internet is just gross and horrifying, but they still ain't got shit on Aeon Flux.
Oh, hell no!
If I had a gripe with the show, is that the art is incredible, like too incredible, but it's hard to look at. That's a giant contradiction, but come on dude, look at this fucking thing. Aeon Flux ended October 10, 1995, but in 2005, the show was made into a live-action film starring Charlize Theron. And it sucked! Not only critically, but also it sucked at the box office as well. Wow, no one could have seen that coming. This underworld piece of shit ripoff failed at the box office? Holy shit. Series creator Peter Chung has also been quoted as saying about the movie, "It was a travesty." Overall, should you watch Aeon Flux? Yeah, I think everyone should probably like experience it at least once. It's just so interesting of a series. Next, we move on to 1993, Mike Judge's series Beavis and Butthead. Probably the most popular animated show in this entire retrospect. The show was created by director, actor, writer, producer, animator, pretty much the whole quesadilla Mike Judge. That name may ring a bell because Mike Judge also created other classics like Fox's King of the Hill, the hilarious comedy Office Space, and currently doing an excellent job on the award-winning HBO series Silicon Valley. But Beavis and Butthead was where he got his start. The premise of Beavis and Butthead is about two dipshit kids being absolute dumb little shits. Their goal in life is to watch TV, score, and eat nachos, like most teenagers, and pretty much most adults. Beavis and Butthead is hilarious with many famous quotes and funny lines like Cornholio and the famous Beavis and Butthead giggle. The best part of the show is just watching other characters just react to these two bumbling retards, and the reactions are most often pretty hilarious. Another aspect of the show is that half the show is just seeing these two characters react to music videos. Yeah, Beavis and Butthead was a weird mix of a show. One half was an original episode, and the other is just them reacting to music videos. Sometimes their commentary is a little basic and uninteresting, but sometimes it can be actually pretty much funnier than the main part of the show. I really like the side characters in Beavis and Butthead. My favorite character in the entire series is their neighbor Tom Anderson. He's just an old-fashioned World War II conservative veteran that gets pissed off at seeing these two idiots.
What do you say there, Tom? How'd you hit him?
Boy, I tell you what, Dusty, I felt like a one-legged cat trying to bury turds on a frozen pond out there today.
And no, you're not crazy. This character is literally Hank Hill with a different name. Beavis and Butthead is MTV's most popular animated show. These guys were so popular, they made it to fucking Letterman.
So, essentially you guys are, what, like idiots? Yeah. So you're like nuts, right?
You said nuts.
Yeah.
They were also pretty famous for other reasons, like angry parenting that the show is poisoning the minds of the youth, thinking kids will all beat the shit out of frogs with bats. I just see this as 90s parents being just pussies. Like the 90s was like a time where media was getting more of an edge and parents were just being overly protective. It kind of proves the theory that humans will get very protective over shit they don't understand. Like remember, Night Trap was like the poster child for the ESRB for a time. And looking back at the game now compared to the shit kids see today, that shit is child's play. Beavis and Butthead throughout the 90s were MTV superstars. They lasted for several seasons and even got their own theatrical film in 1996, Beavis and Butthead Do America. A film about Beavis and Butthead going across America to find their stolen piece of shit TV. A simple and honestly dumb plot, but the movie's really great. The movie is based off the TV show, but it stands on its own by just being funny. You don't need any prior knowledge to enjoy this film. That prior knowledge may enhance your experience, but it really isn't necessary. I certainly didn't know much about the series when I saw this film, and I just saw it on a whim on Netflix and I watched it and it became one of my favorite animated films. It really is just two complete morons going to many destinations like the Arizona desert and the White House house just to watch some fucking TV. If you don't want to indulge in the entire series, I implore you, please just give Beavis and Butthead Do America a shot. It's a really great movie. Beavis and Butthead ended November 28, 1997. 14 years later, on October 27, 2011, Beavis and Butthead returned to MTV with new episodes.
Now, I know these tired old eyes ain't seeing two able-bodied young men just lollygagging.
Can you, like, shut up?
The reception to the revival wasn't that impressive in terms of critical reception or ratings. People didn't completely hate it, I didn't, but pretty much everyone agreed that the early seasons were far better, and I share the same sentiment. And this revival just came and fucking went. It premiered October 27, 2011, and it ended the same year, December 29, 2011. It was just not really that wise to bring them back, especially in the late 2000s, early 2010s era where reality show was probably at its peak, and especially with MTV being one of the top networks in the forefront with their big hit reality shows like Jersey Shore, The Real World, and Teen Mom. It really pushed out a lot of their audience that would be interested in Beavis and Butthead out of the way. The audience MTV had at the time were these preteen teenage girls who probably don't know or don't give two shits about Beavis and Butthead. So this revival was kinda doomed from the start, and its short run kinda proves this. The two idiots may return one day. Mike Judge has stated that he has some desire to bring them back, but maybe for a different network, because they don't feel MTV is the right place for them anymore. But at the moment, he seems pretty occupied with his HBO series Silicon Valley, which I've heard is a pretty great show, and he's seemingly getting awards for it, so I wouldn't expect to see them for a long time, if not ever. If Beavis and Butthead do ever make a comeback, I'm hoping it possibly lands on a network like Adult Swim. I feel like Adult Swim is like the perfect place for Beavis and Butthead. I feel like the audience there would be really into it, but I think some corporate shit will get in the way, like fucking Turner, Viacom, bullshit. So the most likely scenario I see it is that they go to Comedy Central because Viacom owns it, and it'll run for like maybe one season, maybe two if they're lucky, and never get picked up again, and then it will just die forever. Next up is 1994's artistic masterpiece, The Brothers Grunt, created by Ed and Eddie creator Danny Antonucci. MTV offered Dan to create for them a show after they really liked some of his animated MTV ads. And what a show he made.
Kill it! Kill it!
This show is gross. Just like Aeon Flux, the visuals of this show stands out the most. You really can't address this show without having to bring up the visuals. But the plot of The Brothers Grunt is about 6 brothers: Frank, Tony, Bing, Dean, Sammy, and Perry. All reference to famous 1950s singers like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. In the show, there has to be a chosen one, and the chosen one became Perry. Perry didn't really like being the chosen one and just pieced the fuck out and left. So the Grand Poobah, this guy, ordered his brothers to go out and find their brother Perry, and that's pretty much the whole show. The Brothers Grunt is a very contentious show for some reason. A lot of people think it's pretty terrible, which I can see a lot of reasons why, but I really didn't hate this one. I like some of the slapstick in the series. It wasn't as strong as Danny's other work like in Ed and Eddie, but it was pretty decent. Also, it's kind of fun comparing between Ed and Eddie in this series, and that's because you can see a little aspect of this series carry over into Ed and Eddie. Like how all the title cards are drawn, they're exactly drawn like how they are in Ed and Eddie. And I really like some of these weird characters in this series, like this giant prisoner who really likes oral hygiene.
All right, girls, lights out, lights out, lights out. Didn't your mother ever tell you to brush?
But I will say, if you have a low tolerance for gross out, you may not take a liking to this series. And again, this show is fucking disgusting. Not like in the animation, because the animation is really not that bad. It's just kind of like the art direction wise that I can see why people will get really disgusted by the show. I personally don't find it that gross, but I can see why people have the opposite opinion. The one thing I really hate about this series though is the integrated music video parts in the show. They feel so unnecessary. Like Beavis and Butthead can get away with stuff like that because it makes sense in the context of the characters and the world around them. It's like the 90s, so of course there's like 2 piece of shit teenagers lounging on a couch watching music videos somewhere. But in The Brothers Grunt, there's like no point whatsoever. It just plays a music video. Like, cool, there's a music video, I guess, but why? It's just so unnecessary. Would I suggest The Brothers Grunt? Yeah, I actually really liked it. I liked it quite a bit. Again, if you have a low tolerance for gross out, you're gonna absolutely hate this series, but I found some jokes and some characters really funny. Next, we move on to the mid-90s, where MTV created a little programming block called MTV Oddity, a half-hour half-hour programming block where they would air reruns of shorts of Liquid Television and create 2 new 10-minute cartoons, which I'm about to talk about. First up, we have MTV's The Head, created by Eric Fogel, who would later create MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch and Glenn Martin DDS. Take that as you will, I never really found Glenn Martin DDS that funny. MTV The Head really surprised me. Not for like the actual quality of the show, but mostly for the dramatic tone of the show. When you first see an image or hear a description of The Head, you think, oh, this is gonna be some dumb, goofy comedy about some idiot with a giant head. Not a sad, somewhat depressing miniseries. Okay, so the plot of the series is about this guy's life being flipped upside down. This guy's name is Jim.
Hey, what's up? It's Jim.
Jim seemed to have a fairly good life. He has his own apartment, he goes to school, he has a girlfriend. Jim seems to be doing pretty well. Until one day, Jim looks up to the starry sky and a parasitic alien crawls into his skull, expanding his head to a gigantic proportion. So now Jim has to live his life with a disgusting giant head. Doesn't sound too bad, Trump's doing well for himself.
Holy mackerel!
After getting into it with a couple of thugs asking, hey dude, what the fuck is up with your head? A purple disgusting alien pops out of his head, going by the name of Roy, beats up said thugs and tells Jim there's gonna be a parasitic alien race coming to attack Earth. And at this point I realized, wait a minute, parasitic aliens taking over humans in an attempt to control humanity. This is fucking Parasite! But instead of like actually cool, scary parasitic aliens like in Parasite, we get purple little disgusting monstrosities. Also, they don't turn into dicks. The writing of The Head is just kind of okay. It's kind of mediocre. Like the early episodes did kind of make me feel for the main character having to live his life as this sort of monstrosity. But as the show went on, it just kind of got really goofy and unfunny. And some of the characters I just found really annoying, like this doctor character. But there were some that I really liked. Like I really did enjoy some of the interactions Jim had with some of his freak show friends. Like the dude whose head is just impaled due to a defective lawnmower. I always found him kind of humorous. But mostly all the characters I don't really like that much. Even the main character Jim isn't really that special, and he just ends up being a dry piece of toast as the show goes on. And his alien companion, he's fucking disgusting looking. I hate him. That kind of leads me into the art of the show, and the art of the show is not really that great. It kind of sucks actually. Like a lot of the characters look so unappealing, and that kind of makes sense for some of the characters with like these sort of deformities, but like regular humans in the show also look like deformed pieces of shit as well. Like Jim's girlfriend just looks terrible, and the evil doctor looks awful, and every attempt at a fight scene in this fucking show is just utter garbage. I did not really enjoy MTV's The Head. I just found it really boring, overly dramatic at points, and just ugly. Do I suggest it? No, I just think it fucking sucks. It sucks, dude. It's terrible.
Most of us inhabit at least 2 worlds. The real world, where we're at the mercy of circumstance, and the world within, the unconscious.
Well, after the piece of shit that we call The Head, we have another MTV oddity cartoon based on cult image comic book character, The Max. The Max started off as a monthly image comic created by Sam Keith in 1993. The story is about a superhero and professional hobo Max, a gigantic purple costume-wearing man with gigantic feet, claws, and teeth that jut all the way out of his face. Also, Max just doesn't have a chin. Max's job is to protect his queen and the woman he lives with, Julie Winters, a social worker who decides to wear this to her job. In The Max, we see Max trying to juggle being stuck in between 2 worlds, the real world and the Outback, his original homeland back in Australia. He periodically falls into this world throughout the series, and his only goal is to protect his beloved jungle and his beloved queen. The Max is a pretty intense and dark show to watch, with many dark themes such as depression, rape, adolescent suicide, and violence. Lots of violence. At first, just looking at a promo image, I thought the series was going to be a pretty standard superhero show with a lot of violence. But I was pleasantly surprised seeing the series was a lot more deeper than that, and was much more of a psychological study of some of these characters instead of being a superhero show. I really like the characters in the show, though they can be a little bit too much. I like Max, but the long, sad inner monologues about his past can get a little bit annoying after a while. But look at him, he's a big purple thing with claws, and I love him. Look, he even watches cartoons. I thought Julie was much more of an interesting character, mostly due to her backstory and the way she expresses her views on life are pretty interesting. But definitely the best character in the series is Mr. Gone.
So much for that plan. Shut up!
just because he's a fucking troll. Never have I loved a serial killer and serial rapist as much as Mr. Gone. Well, there was my Uncle Ricky. I liked him quite a bit. He used to give me a little snack cakes. Didn't like that he kept asking if my parents weren't home. Anyways, Mr. Gone was just an asshole and he's just awesome. Like, he really is just antagonizing Max and Julie just for his sheer enjoyment. Like, he states in the intro of the show that he can help them with their problems and give them like a solution, but he'd rather be a piece of shit and just fuck with them.
And me? Old Mr. Gone? Only I can see that the secret which unites them could destroy them. I could be helpful. Screw it. I think I'll have some fun with them first.
And I just find that really awesome about him. He's just the best. If I were to describe the art of the show, I would say it's like a really cool blend of like actual 2D animation and a motion comic. The animation of Max is really good. Like, the art quality on display is really high for some reason. It is much higher than I was expecting from a cult indie comic. The art at time is really smooth and hand-painted character stills are really awesome to look at. And they also use some like really interesting 3D backgrounds here and there. If you're in the mood for a sad sort of psychological take on superheroes that's not Watchmen and has a giant purple guy, consider checking out the Max. It's really good. That's where I'm going to stop here for part 1 of this series. Join me next time as we close out the 90s and talk about the next millennia. If you want to help support what I do, consider checking out my Patreon. And also go check out the podcast I'm on, the Cartoon Planet Podcast, where we talk about stupid bullshit that relates to cartoons, sort of. And if you want to see some other stupid shit, check me out on twitter.com/MarsReviews. Thank you for watching.